And we understand, or do we? Being so far removed from the Gaza and the West Bank areas that perhaps it makes it difficult for us to really comprehend what it's like. Yes. And the fact that, for example, so many nations have open relations with Israel makes you wonder what actually tips the scale against the oppressed. Don't you wonder? Yes. We should wonder. So ladies and gentlemen, today we will hear from three young activists speak up about the scenario. Yeah? We will have Mr. Carl Jackson, who's an Australian student, active in social activities and currently one of the leaders for Students for Palestine, UQ. We have Mr. Izzat Roslan. I thought there was some enthusiasm. And then we have Mr. Izzat Roslan, who's a Malaysian student currently studying in Adelaide. And he's active in, how do you pronounce this word? Vlogging or vlogging? Vlogging, eh? Okay, vlogging on Islamic issues. And he's an Islamic activist, Mr. Izzat Roslan. And we have Ms. Hiba Yaqub Riyad. She's a Palestinian student currently studying in UQ and has been involved in supporting the Palestine cause. Now today we will hear from them, speak from their hearts, so that perhaps we, with our hearts, will see, will hear, will understand, will be aware, and finally perhaps we will act in our own capacities. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just to inform you about the format of our program this afternoon, as the facilitator, I will put forth questions to the panelists, and in the form of rounds. So, in a particular round, any of the panelists would respond to the question, and after that, I will continue with additional questions, perhaps meant for one of the panelists or perhaps meant for all of the panelists. So we'll probably have a couple of question rounds. After about 3 rounds, we'll take a short break and then take questions from the audience. Yes, if you have any queries, perhaps you want to ask how the activists decided to take a plunge into this particular field. So feel free to ask at that particular point in time. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get the ball rolling this afternoon. Now, as an introduction, I think the first question I'd like to pose is to Mr. Jackson, or Carl. Yes. Now, Carl, as an Australian, how did you get into this particular? How did you decide to become an activist? Set up Student for Palestine. And what's your opinion on the Australian government stand right now?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good question because, I think particularly, for any Australians in the audience who, went to high school, well, my geography teacher just told me that, summed this conflict up as, poor old Israel just being attacked by all of these vicious Arab states, which obviously couldn't be further from the truth. Israel is the military aggressor in this situation, which continues to oppress Palestinians every day, is responsible for the genocide of the Palestinian people. But it was actually, well, for me, last year, some of you may be aware that Israel yet again launched an assault on the Gaza Strip, which is essentially the world's largest open-air prison. If you look at it on a map, it's not very small at all, and yet millions of Palestinians live in the Gaza Strip. They can't get out. It's very hard to get supplies in or out as well. They've got to go through illegal tunnels. But basically, Israel decided that they were going to bomb the Gaza Strip. And it was in the news and it was quite horrific, and so I guess that sort of got me asking myself, well, what actually is going on here? And I think if you actually have a look at it very quickly, you see through all the lies that we constantly get bombarded with in the media and by our by the establishment, the politicians, our curriculums in high schools and universities. So that's what it was for me, yeah.
Now, I'd like to extend upon that point that you just made, how you're bombarded by material in the curriculum, by the media stating that, right, one side's good, the other side's bad. And that's the end of it. Yes? And it made you actually wonder whether that's the truth.
Yeah, well, the other part of it, sorry, I didn't answer the second part of your question before, but like, well, what do I think about the Australian, like, state support for Israel? Well, I think it's absolutely disgusting that both major political parties in this country support Israel to the hilt, like Lana said before, and like actually right from the creation of Israel as a state, it was Australian representatives of the Australian state in the UN like aggressively fighting for recognition of Israel as a state. And if you look at the history of every single conflict, everything that they've ever had to say about it is pro-Israel. Palestinians, they're all terrorists, completely support the continued oppression of the Palestinians. And like, it's absolutely disgusting. And some of the other speakers from the crowd before were talking about like our universities. Actually, all of the universities in Australia are complicit with Israeli apartheid as well. Like RMIT University down in Melbourne, responsible for making drones which kill innocent Palestinians. Actually, there's a BAE like systems lab here at the University of Queensland which developed rocket technology. Now, supposedly for peaceful purposes, but I highly doubt that. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, maybe this was implemented somehow in killing Palestinians. It's the same story like lots of universities around Australia. So I think there is a very why you should get involved. Well, I think that there's a lot that we can do to discredit the Australian government support of Israel in this country on our campuses, and also like the media. Yeah.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thanks. Now, let's move on to Izzat. Yes? Now, currently as a Malaysian student studying Adelaide, or was it Perth? Adelaide, was it?
Yeah.
Yes. I should read my notes more closely. Now, as a Malaysian student, how did you get into the activities that you're currently in? What drove you to do that? And what's your perception of the Malaysian government's stand towards the Middle Eastern issue?
All right. First of all, before I start answering the questions, I would like to express a token of appreciation for the event manager, Mr. Koyup, who actually invited me for this event. I'm actually a Noah, I'm not even a Queenslander. I'm from Adelaide, and then suddenly he, private messaged me on Facebook. Hey, we'd like you to be one of our panelists, to share your bright ideas and stuff. I don't know if I actually have bright ideas, to share with you guys. Just my personal thought into this matter. So before I move on, I just want to see some a bit rough populations here. Would you raise your hand if you're Muslim? Right. Non-Muslims? Not so Muslims? I know you're out there. Raise your hands. Nah, I'm just joking. Okay, we do have volunteers, right? That's good. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to say Assalamualaikum. For the non, do you know what Assalamualaikum means? No. No? Okay. It means we'll kill you. It's just a joke. It's what's this guy saying? Salami and bacon? No. No, it's a greeting of peace. Assalamualaikum is like it's saying peace be upon you, and we reply wa alaikum salam. Peace be upon you too. Alright, so that's a greeting that we use among Muslims. Right, so don't get confused. When we say Arabic words does not mean that we're gonna kill you guys. We're good people. We're nice people. We love peace. The word Islam itself means peace. Alright. So don't get me wrong. I'm from Malaysia. I do get this idea that people think I'm from America. It's just the way I speak. I speak a little bit American because that's how I grew up. And I remember once I tried to speak a British accent. And no matter what I talk about, I seem quite intelligent, So I try to loosen up a little bit and try to use...
You try it more often, mate.
Okay. Alright, so I try to loosen up a little bit, try to use an accent that people are familiar with, Okay, so the kind of view that I'm going to take in this forum is that I'm going to take a view as a Muslim, okay? I'm going to take this issue and take on this issue as a Muslim. Specifically as a Malaysian Muslim youth, specifically as a Malaysian Muslim youth, and we can agree that we all in this together. You know, despite you're not a Muslim or Muslim, we are in this together. We support this issue of Palestine. Okay, and when I talk about Islam, it's a meaning of Islam, not the modern Muslim that the United States are trying to portray to us. You know, we have this a research done by RAND Corporation, which entitled "Building a Moderate Muslim Network." You know, this RAND Corporation actually sent this paperwork to the United States, and they're trying to create this some sort of moderate Muslim network. That's what they're trying to do in the Middle Eastern right now, towards the Egypt, towards the all the Arab League's country right now. Okay, so what I'm talking about as a Muslim perspective, as someone who practiced Muslim as a whole, you know, the way I interact with people, the way we interact with our children, the way we interact with family members, you know, we treat Islam as our way of life. It's not just part of the things that we do in our mosque. You know, we do it as our way of life. The way I deal with you, Mr. Jackson, the way I deal with you, Ms. Heba, the way I deal with the audience, the way I wake up, the way I eat, it has to be an Islamic perspective. That's how we describe ourselves as a Muslim. Whereas the moderate Muslim is in a different way, you know. It's like, you know, Muslim is just for yourself. You don't have to tell it to everyone. You don't have to be everything as a Muslim. The way you interact with people doesn't have to be the Muslim way. It has to be, you know, sort of like westernized way. Okay? Is this thing on? All right. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so, all right. So how did I actually come into this? Is this one hadith that actually struck me really hard? You know, hadith is the words of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him. You know, he said that because we Muslims, we rely on our faith, our belief towards God, that determines how close we are to our God, to the one God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this one hadith that the Prophet Muhammad said is that one does not truly believe